I hope everybody hears me well. And to present myself, I am Anastasia Roniotis, a WES team member, and I will just start by navigating everyone through the simple steps of today's platform, the technical aspects. You may have noticed as an attendee that your microphones and cameras are inactive because we're using the Zoom webinar mode today. But you can use the chat area to communicate with the panelists. So you can put any issue you would like to raise there. There is interpretation between English and French. In the slides here, we can see that if you go to the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see this visual and you can choose the language that you prefer. And also, if during the webinar you would like to ask a question to any of the panelists, you can just click on the Q&A at the bottom, and the panelists will try and either reply directly to you, or at the designated time in the meeting, we may select some questions, time permitting, to reply to them so everyone can hear. So a big welcome to all of you who have joined. Thank you very much. Because of this webinar platform that we are using, we unfortunately cannot see each other. But let me share that people are joining quickly. And I think that this community of practitioners working on plastic pollution and prevention is a strong one and will show its presence. So a genuine thank you goes out, especially because amongst the participants and I know that more will join later, there are practitioners that have joined despite the wartime conditions that they are enduring. It's very encouraging to hearing their news about ongoing efforts in tackling the very serious added environmental pressures under these extreme conditions that have new demands surfacing, among many things, for waste management of displaced communities, for example, including for plastic waste. It's hard to believe that 5.5 years of the EU-funded Water and Environment Support Project have passed. It went by despite a pandemic and so much going on in our region very quickly. And our project that was implemented mostly in North Africa and the Middle East, but always has very strong links with the whole of the Euro-Mediterranean region in terms of partnerships, exchanges, and synergies. It's coming to a close. It's practically the last day of the project today. We had a closing conference earlier this month, and in a way, we wanted to conclude the environment component of the project by showcasing some of our highlights and in our work that had to do with prevention of plastic pollution. So after hearing from our institutional partners, the Union for the Mediterranean and the Mediterranean Action Plan of UNEP, the Barcelona Convention System, we will hear a status update on the ongoing negotiations for a global plastics treaty. And then we will zoom back to the Mediterranean to present some glimpses from the many WES activities that took place. Many of you have been engaged in one form or another, and we apologize in advance if you do not see your contribution in today's very short meeting, simply because we could not cover everything. That doesn't mean that anything that is not mentioned today was less important. Everything can be found, nevertheless, on the project website. And for the closing conference and the closing of the project, we also developed a booklet which highlights the project achievements, and it's available in English, French, and Arabic. So I guess it's timely to say that this is not the end. We have a 3-year extension to WES. The new project will be called WES BCA. So this community and the progress that has been achieved jointly will continue to be supported by the European Union. It will be injected with new elements, bringing in biodiversity aspects and climate action. So there will be a more holistic approach in addressing the triple planetary crisis. And what we saw in Valencia just now highlights just how timely and necessary it is to be able to be well prepared to deal with increasing challenges and extreme events in the region. So we may be concluding 5.5 years, but the new 3-year cycle will commence very soon. To set the tone of the meeting and for me to talk less, and just before giving the floor to Tatiana and Alessandra, we will watch a very short WES video, which has been developed specifically for single-use plastics. So see you in a bit.
Today, humanity produces a staggering 400 million tons of plastic annually. Half of it is destined to be used only once. These single-use plastics are mainly made from fossil fuels, and their production consumes vast amounts of energy and natural resources. Yet, these items are often discarded immediately after use, sometimes in just minutes. Most single-use plastics are not currently recycled due to the complexity of recycling systems, inadequate infrastructure, low profitability, technological barriers, or lack of awareness. Plastics are the largest, most harmful and persistent type of marine litter, accounting for about 85% of all marine waste. Plastic litter is found in all seas and coasts, lying on shores, floating anywhere from the surface to the bottom of the sea, even in the most isolated, pristine environments. The choking of our planet on plastic pollution is a growing concern and one of the most pressing issues of our times. The Mediterranean basin, largely enclosed, is one of the most vulnerable areas to marine plastic pollution, with studies indicating that single-use plastics represent over 60% of the litter on beaches. This poses a great threat not only to the environment, but also to vital economic sectors, such as fisheries, aquaculture, tourism and shipping, resulting in losses for individuals, enterprises and communities. The EU-funded WES project is actively engaged in tackling plastic pollution and marine litter at regional and national levels. Aligned with environmental and circular economy objectives in the Mediterranean, actors including policymakers, producers and civil society work together to define a spectrum of solutions, approaches and measures adapted to the local context. Measures on single-use plastics are already implemented in the region, targeting frequently used plastic items such as bags and bottles. However, the magnitude and complexity of the problem demand governments, producers and other actors to be conscious of their role in order to achieve a significant change towards a sustainable future. And all of us, as conscious consumers and active citizens, can bring about the change we wish to see tomorrow by simply altering our daily habits today. Sort our waste and participate in recycling efforts. Support reusable packaging for products. Bring our own reusable mug or bottle. Pack our lunch in reusable containers. Buy in bulk for fruit, vegetables, nuts and spices. Stay informed on credible alternatives to single-use plastics. Together, let's choose to refuse single-use plastics.
Okay, so under the WES project, it has been very important to support the region's countries to be capacitated and better equipped so as to meet their binding obligations under the Barcelona Convention. And this has been a key goal and task of WES. And the same applies for the appropriation of many guidelines and other tools developed by UNEP-MAP and its regional activity centers. And of course, having MedWaves, the Regional Activity Center on Sustainable Consumption and Production on the WES Consortium has helped us. It has been instrumental in the integration of many such activities in our work program, both at regional and at national level. So I turn to Tatiana Hema, coordinator of UNEP-MAP, to address us. And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Dear colleagues, I'm very pleased to be with you to share some opening remarks at this webinar on single-use plastics and plastics management. You just mentioned that Mediterranean is facing severe environmental crisis, pollution, biodiversity, and climate change. And our region, being unique, home to diverse ecosystems and vital coastal communities, is particularly vulnerable to these challenges, which are intensified by unsustainable consumption and production patterns. Therefore, addressing these interlinked issues demands comprehensive action and collaboration. We are at a pivotal time in the journey towards sustainability and in reducing plastic pollution. And in the Mediterranean, as you are aware, UNEP-MAP Barcelona Convention system has taken important commitment to address one of the most persistent environmental challenges of our era. As many of you know, our efforts, mainly of the Mediterranean countries, under the regional plan on marine litter management adopted in 2013, but enhanced and upgraded in 2021, have set us on a progressive path towards significant reduction in plastic waste entering the Mediterranean through its effective implementation. Why we always refer to this regional plan? We refer to this regional plan because it integrates practical measures essential for plastic pollution mitigation. These measures include setting targets for plastic recycling, introducing economic tools like environmental taxes and extended producer responsibility, supporting the reduction of packaging, and incorporating innovative technologies to aid marine litter removal. Additionally, our approach prioritizes involving the informal sector in organized recycling schemes and strengthen marine litter monitoring program and assessment. Public awareness and education remain cornerstone of this plan, as they are vital for driving the necessary behavior change. And I have the opportunity to really thank very much WES and the European Commission and our colleagues at MIO and all the partners for the work they are undertaking in supporting contracting parties and different partners to put in place and to implement the measures that have been envisaged in the regional plan on marine litter in the Mediterranean. The revised regional plan on marine litter brings forward an ambitious framework to support contracting parties in concrete action on single-use plastics, or the SUPs, or SUPs, how you call them, the purpose of the meeting that we are having today, and on marine litter. Through its integrated approach, the regional plan emphasizes the prevention, reduction, and monitoring, as well as awareness raising, capacity building, and innovation. You are aware that microplastics have reached alarmingly high concentration in the Mediterranean waters, up to 1,000 times above recommended thresholds. According to our report 2023, on the quality status report that was endorsed by the last meeting of the contracting parties and currently under the publication. To address this, we need a coordinated multi-level strategy that includes prevention measures to reduce plastic use and waste before it reaches our waters. Key actions include updating national legal framework, setting EPR systems for high priority products, and encouraging sustainable consumption and avoid to the extent possible the single use of plastics. Our shared goal is to accelerate action on single-use plastics while promoting circular economy principles. UNEP-MAP, in collaboration with all key stakeholders, as I just mentioned, continues to work tirelessly to support the implementation of the regional plan, focusing on the development of national action plan, legislative framework, and cross-sectorial partnership. And I must say that the WES project has been really instrumental in developing practical tools, guidelines, and capacity building initiatives that add countries across the Mediterranean on a number of sectors, including the one we are addressing today. Today's agenda offers a wealth of knowledge and practical tools from distinguished experts who are actively shaping the way we address plastic pollution in the Mediterranean. We will explore together how the WES project is providing tools for practical action, including innovative methods for monitoring seafloor litter, and examine the role of communication in catalyzing change. Today's sessions underscore the progress being made through the combined effort of UNEP-MAP and WES through our Regional Activity Center for Sustainable Consumption Production MedWave. By sharing practical solutions and expertise, we continue to strengthen the capacity of the Mediterranean countries to address the impact of single-use plastics and to protect our unique marine environment. MedWave's SCP-RAC, through years of the project implementation, has been very active, as Anastasia said, and has provided expert assistance to tackling the single-use plastics, for example, in developing an EPR roadmap in Morocco, or identification of alternatives, single-use plastics in Lebanon, or the delivery of the training webinars on the problematic of plastic and microplastic. There are many, many activities of this kind, and it will be a great opportunity today that we could hear from you and share together what we have done, what we have learned, and how we can do better in the future. Together, we are building a framework for action and creating lasting impacts for our shared Mediterranean environment. I thank you very much. I wish you a fruitful workshop and webinar, if you call it like that, and I look forward to further continuation and collaboration with WES program, including the change of the name that I'm not in a position to remember it now. Good luck with this webinar, and thank you very much. And we are very happy and proud to have this community in the region that does not spare any effort to further our agenda for the protection of marine and coastal environment in the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. It has been a long journey indeed since 2009 that the European Commission has been supporting this collective effort, and it's great to see such a long time synergy in the region lasting so long. So thank you very much. And I kindly ask Alessandra Sensi, the other pillar, who is from the Environment, Green and Blue Economy Division of the Union for the Mediterranean, to take the floor now. The implementation of the 2030 Greener Med Agenda of the UFM has also been a key reference for us, hand in hand with transposing EU policy in the Southern Neighbourhood. So Alessandra, the floor is yours, and thank you also. I know it has been a very, very busy period, and thank you very much also for making the time for this webinar, which does not really have a capacity building character, but more a dissemination, recognition, acknowledgement of the community in place and taking action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, and thank you very much, colleagues. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I'd like in particular also to thank you for the opening words and the reference to the catastrophe that we are just nearby in Valencia, which indeed reminds us of the need of pooling resources more than ever. This is, I think, part of the recognition that we can sort of give as community, in the sense that over the past 10 years, we have been indeed able to reach a much higher level of convergence and maximization of our, let's say, collaboration and coordination on many different fronts, including marine litter. Indeed, I'd like to praise also the WES for all the support that has been given to the region over the past years. WES is indeed the backbone of environmental cooperation in the Mediterranean, and we have benefited a lot of its presence. Therefore, we are extremely happy to hear about the prosecution, the continuation through WES BCA. And indeed with a different angle, but still allowing us, you know, to promote all the different fronts of cooperation as mentioned. You recalled also Greener Med, which is indeed part of the UFM Ministerial Declaration on Environment and Climate Action. I'd like also to recall the UFM Ministerial Declaration on Blue Economy, precisely because marine litter is a cross-cutting, let's say, axis between green and blue, but also within the axis of the Greener Med agenda, being those referred to indeed the green and transition, including the blue, the pollution with a lot of focus on pollution prevention, and Tatiana also has been mentioning the importance of sustainable consumption and production that has been adopted as, let's say, common approach to it in 2014, as well as all the related biodiversity and ecosystem conservation and restoration aspects. As you may remember, because this is of course part of our joint effort, Plastic Busters has been having a very important role as a initiative and as a program over the past 10 years, together with WES, with many other projects, which I like to recall now, like Tumali, that is still ongoing and indeed brings in a different perspective on extended producer responsibility, which will be tackled even today, and on important, let's say, economic sector for the Mediterranean, like tourism as well, the collaboration with the Interreg, Euromed, and NextMed, not only supporting the Plastic Busters project and program, but also supporting currently the mission on sustainable and innovative economy, launching the NextMed in the very next days, a new call on green economy. So what was very important is that the work of the UFM around marine litter was actually aiming at connecting all these different, let's say, dimensions into one. And I think we can be quite proud that we succeeded in this endeavor. So in terms of, let's say, current task that the UFM is carrying out, we are having a dedicated technical assistance on marine litter in order to give follow-up to the process, let's say, launch over the past years. In particular, we are looking into other possible projects that together with WES would indeed support marine litter. I'm just noticing that over the past 10 years, marine litter has been in a certain way leaving a very strong momentum, but we have to be able to maintain this momentum. And of course, I mean, link that, as you mentioned in your opening remarks as well, to the waste and waste governance and management projects that are being launched as well. So as to make sure that the choreography of all the various actions is maintained. As UFM, we are also following very closely the negotiation for the international agreement. This is, of course, not easy. We see that actually the level of expectation might be, let's say, lower. So we still have to try to push and be ambitious. Our Jordan co-presidency is fully on it. We will have also some reporting from their side on the occasion of the Environment Working Group that we will be having in January, on the 29th of January, gathering again. And this is, of course, particularly relevant also in relation to the biodiversity COP that is going on precisely these days. So without any further ado, I would like to thank you again. I'm very sorry that we couldn't be present at the closing conference of WES in person, but we hope that with today's participation, we can sort of recuperate and indeed restate our full commitment and our enormous appreciation for all the work that WES did in the past and is surely going to do also in the years to come. So thank you very much to the WES, but also thank you very much to the team and all the people that behind it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alessandra. You were there in spirit, so no worries about the closing conference. Yes, I think it's important to also mention a common product of WES, UNEP-MAP, and the UFM, which was a key deliverable where we tried to, we created an online repository of 20 best practices that were exactly aiming to promote waste reduction and circular economy across the waste management chain in the Mediterranean region, which was a very important, also symbolically, activity because it was done on a consultation basis. The cases were identified by the stakeholders of the region themselves. Of course, it can be enriched with many new cases because we completed it a couple of years ago. And the link is in the chat. And it's important that also it comes to address also a flagship initiative of the Mediterranean Strategy for Sustainable Development, which is also under revision, and a new phase will start soon. And for that deliverable, also the UFM had provided funding specifically. So it was a wonderful case of true synergy, and we look forward to more of that in the near future. And I also would thank you very much for this opening session, and for your presence and for your kind words. And we look forward to continuing as we are, and even stronger. And I will pass the floor to my colleague, Thomi Vlechogianni, who will undertake and walk us through the steps of the next section of the webinar. So Thomi, over to you. Take us to the global level and then bring us back.
Oh my God, it sounds kind of scary now.
No,
if you put it
no,
in that
not at all.
way. But first of all, hi everyone. It's a really great pleasure to be here with you. I felt almost moved seeing how many people from the wider Mediterranean marine litter community have joined, and it has been a great joy for me to be part of this community for apparently 15 years. So time is flying. So basically, I would like now to introduce the next topic of this webinar, which has to do with the global treaty. And I would like to introduce Emily Cohen, which is a dedicated researcher specializing in global plastic governance issues. Emily is a research scientist in Sintef Ocean, which is a Norwegian research institute focused on marine pollution issues. And she has made significant contributions to transdisciplinary projects on plastics at European and international level. And her current research is focusing on the UN plastic treaty negotiations that she's directly partaking. Unfortunately, she could not be here with us today in person. However, we found a way for her to contribute to this webinar, and she has sent a recorded intervention that I invite all of you to watch now. So, perfect.
Hey everyone, my name is Emily Cowan and I'm a research scientist at Sintef Ocean in Trondheim, Norway. And I must apologize for having to send in this recording and not be there in person, as I'm currently in Colombia attending COP16 following the Convention on Biological Diversity. However, I'm still very happy to have the pleasure to speak with you all today about the ongoing negotiations on the UN Global Plastics Treaty. And this is a process I've been following very closely since its mandate was adopted at the UN Environmental Assembly in Nairobi back in 2022, as seen in this picture. Now, before we get into this talk, I wanted to start with a metaphor. And since this presentation is targeted towards a Mediterranean audience, I thought a Greek myth would be fitting. But please bear with me on my pronunciations here. So here we have a picture of Sisyphus, or at least an interpretation of the Greek mythology about Sisyphus. Now I'm sure you're all aware of the story, but I'll give you a quick Cliff Notes version. Basically, he cheated death multiple times and was ultimately condemned by Zeus to forever roll up this boulder up the hill. And every time, right before he reached the top, the boulder would fall down, only for him to have to roll it up again with a fate of dread and hopelessness of eternity. Now, I don't know about you all, but I like to compare this to what we've been told the last decades, that we can just recycle our way out of the plastic pollution problem. Those of us here today know that recycling our way out is not the only answer. Thinking that the pollution problem can be solved by recycling alone has left us trying to get up that hill of beating plastic pollution only to fall down as the number of plastics produced and polluting in the environment continue to rise. Now, cleanup methods are important, don't get me wrong, but to truly beat plastic pollution, we must understand our production, consumption, and disposal on land before it even enters the marine environment, and be able to integrate that into a global treaty. Taking the full life cycle of plastics into account to end plastic pollution was exactly what the mandate was at the start of the negotiations for what the treaty should include. So where are we now? So here we have a typical timeline for global environmental negotiations. They aim for around 2 years. We started back in 2022 with the mandate, and since then we've had 4 negotiating sessions, with the last one expected to be finalized before the end of the year, as we see here in the Republic of Korea. But what exactly is going on and being negotiated here? Here we have a photo of UN negotiations on the Plastics Treaty at what I believe was the second session of negotiations. And this is unfortunately a common image at negotiations where it's stalled. And as nations could not agree on how they would move forward with the final agreement in a vote. And that was basically around, is the end agreement going to be based on a 2/3 majority or 100% consensus? Now, 100% consensus means that if just one country disagrees with what was in the final treaty text, it may not be passed. And there's a quote I really like from a delegate from Senegal who said, "Consensus kills democracy." The outcomes of the negotiations have been similar throughout the previous 4 sessions, and that is a lack of consensus. We see delegations having 2 diverging viewpoints. So we have the ones on one end of the aisle. A lot of them are part of the so-called High Ambition Coalition, and they argue for a strict, top-down, legally binding, enforceable treaty. And they really frame their interventions around plastics being a production and environmental problem. On the other hand, we have other sets of negotiators who typically are from oil-producing countries, and they really argue for national action plans and just voluntary measures within the treaty. And they frame the plastics problem as just a waste management problem. So what exactly is being negotiated in the text, and why is it creating so much tension? And here we have the main discussion points that happen throughout all of the treaty negotiations. So I've had the privilege of following Contact Group 1, and this includes the main objectives or core obligations that the treaty may include, which are being negotiated. So that includes, are we going to reduce our supply or demand of primary plastic polymers or pellets? They also have an obligation on reducing microplastics. And this one, well enough, it's actually had full consensus on, yes, we can get rid of intentionally added microplastics. That's not needed. There's also core obligations on strengthening waste management, and this is really more at the national and regional level. There's how we design products for circularity, how we will address existing plastic pollution, and also how we facilitate a just transition. So, of course, with new technologies and new obligations coming in the treaty, it might get rid of some previous jobs in the waste management sector, but there's an obligation on how do we protect those, protect the workers' rights and human health as well as the environment. Now, there's also a second contact group that my colleagues have followed, and this is really on how are we going to implement the treaty once we have it. So this includes sort of measures on financial assistance, technical and technology assistance, what sort of national action plans, reporting and compliance will we have, as well as what sort of research and integration from stakeholders do we need. Now, we can see that there are a lot of new policies coming our way, potentially, but like any global agreement, it needs to be taken up and implemented at the regional, national, and more so local level, which is why I'm so pleased to see a webinar like this that brings together regional cooperation and having all of your expertise and experience on what works for the Mediterranean region will make it that much easier when it comes to implementing this global agreement. Now,
I think it was cut short, or do you see it?
Oh, we don't see it. Is it
Ah.
possible to continue somehow? I think it was her ending slide.
It was
but,
her last
It was
slide,
quite important.
but it
so,
was an important.
Yeah, if we could just put it back on the screen.
Yeah, we'll try and get it back up
Apologies for that. It was
and just zoom to the beginning, to the end.
research scientist at Centef Ocean in has on marine ecosystems, but there's also this kind of tug of war that they're relying on sectors that need to include plastics. So this could be in fisheries, construction, medicine, and we need to figure out how we work forward with that. There's also currently a lot of uncertainty. We still don't know if the future agreements will use the mandate and take a full life cycle approach, or if it will solely focus on waste management because countries can't come to an agreement. There's also major points on capacity. So how are we going to aid this transition for less developed countries and support them with technology transfer and financial mechanisms? And finally, something that's very near and dear, I'm sure, to the Mediterranean is how do we cooperate and create synergies between existing environmental agreements and associations that we already have, like the UN Regional Seas Convention, as well as other agreements that deal with plastics, like the International Maritime Organization, MARPOL, NX5. Now, in the end, no one can predict the outcome of what the future global plastics treaty will entail. I can tell you though, all eyes are pointed towards Busan and hoping for a global agreement by the end of the year. But even if this is the case, it will likely take another few years until this is actually implemented. But we can all start working now to prepare our countries at the regional and national level on how to effectively implement what regulation is coming. Whatever agreement we get is also not the end. As I mentioned, I'm here in Colombia attending the Biodiversity COP, and once plastics is adopted, they've already agreed that they will have a COP or Conference of Parties to strengthen their agreement over time. So it's not the end here. I also want to leave you all with this quote from an NGO major group at the first session of negotiations, who stated, "We'll judge the plastics treaty not on what it promises, but on what it does." I left my contact information here in case anyone has any questions or comments. Please feel free to reach out, and I hope you have a great rest of your webinar. Thanks again for having me.
So I hope that you all enjoyed this insightful and inspiring presentation by Emily, which is a very close collaborator of mine. And now I would like to shift our focus from the global negotiations to local community actions in our region. And we saw that Emily highlighted the critical challenges and advances in addressing plastic pollution at the global scale, including, of course, marine plastic pollution, which, as Tatiana mentioned, particularly concerns single-use plastics that account for more than 50% of the waste produced globally, and also of the litter items found in the coastal and marine environment of the Mediterranean. So basically, within that context, I have prepared a presentation that explores how global efforts translate into actionable strategies within our Mediterranean communities, and my presentation entitled Empowering Mediterranean Communities and How Participatory Science and Community-Based Research Can Work to Unlock Solutions for Plastic Pollution, will delve in the vital role that different stakeholder groups can play in combating plastic pollution in our region. And I think that there are quite a few showcases in our region which showcase how community-based research can bridge the gap between the high-level policy discussions and with the grassroots initiatives, and foster effective solutions tailored to the unique challenges of our region. And let me share my screen first, and hopefully you are all able to see my presentation. And just, okay. So, and before I start, I would like to highlight that the WES project, since the very beginning, has placed significant emphasis on synergizing and showcasing and distilling and amplifying valuable experiences from various initiatives, including those labeled by the Union for the Mediterranean, and we heard Alessandra talking about the Plastic Buses Initiative, but also other regional EU-funded initiatives. And today I will focus on sharing some insights from these initiatives, which have in many cases contributed valuable input to regional, but also national WES activities addressing marine plastic pollution. So I chose the showcase of participatory science simply because on the one hand, it's something that is implemented at local level. It can involve everybody within the context of open science, and also it has high potential of generating the knowledge that we need for the ocean that we want. And by referring to participatory science, I mean the kind of science that is based on using a robust scientific methodology and researchers in cooperation with groups of professionals, environmental NGOs, managers of protected areas, educators and students, and even citizens can generate fit-for-purpose data. And this all started several years ago by having NGOs working in generating fit-for-purpose data in relation to macro litter found on beaches, and which in many cases has fed into the elaboration either of national action plans or even the Mediterranean action plan for marine litter management in the region. And in the cases that I will be presenting, we have been promoting the latest developments in relation to the methodological approach on generating fit for purpose for marine litter. And this has to do with the joint list of litter categories for marine macro litter monitoring that was released in 2021, and which is fully compatible, of course, with the UNEP-MAP and MEDPOL litter items list, and the 2023 guidance on monitoring marine litter in European seas. And in fact, one of the showcases has to do with an organized NGO-driven initiative that took place in the Mediterranean. And actually, one of the innovative elements at the time was, on the one hand, that all of this data, fit for purpose data generated, were published in a very well-known scientific journal. So highlighting basically how NGO efforts can really be acknowledged within the scientific and research community worldwide. And this research documented at the time the high-level litter densities in several countries, in even some cases exceeding more than 6,660 items per 100-meter stretch. So very extremely high densities. And another aspect of that research was that for the first time, not just for a community-based research, but in general, among all types of studies that were published at the time, this work referred to single-use plastics and accounted single-use plastics in the coastal and marine environment. And for the Mediterranean, this amount at the time was around 38%. Of course, this has to do also with the typologies of the sites surveyed. And here you can see an overview of the types of items that were encountered. A more recent research that was basically carried out with the participation of students and educators, but also groups of professionals, was carried out in the coastal protected area of the Asterousia Biosphere Reserve, which is located in the most southern part of the Mediterranean in the island of Crete. And this was truly a community-based study, and I dare say of a sort of isolated and marginalized groups of people. And this work, on top of resulting in the fit for purpose data and engaging and educating more than 250 local community members, also resulted in the first of its kind marine litter assessment report in the area, in a scientific article, but most importantly, it fed into the marine litter action plan of the Asterousia Biosphere Reserve, and in 3 memorandums of understanding with local communities on their commitment to operationalize some of the measures identified. And this is a concrete showcase where basically the research that was developed by community groups directly fed into the decision-making process at local level, which of course was then linked with, on the one side, the national programs of measures, but also the Mediterranean Marine Litter Action Plan, and even the developments that are taking place at global level. And this is just a tribute to those people who took part in this initiative. And I will not go into the details of the research results because I don't think that this is the most important part for this kind of webinar that we're having today. And I would like to walk you through another important similar initiative that took place within the framework of the Plastic Buses Initiative. And this is the Plastic Buses Cup Participatory Science Campaign that was held last April. And the overall idea was to empower individuals and communities to take up concrete action and fill in the data gaps in our region. And actually what we tried to do was to concretely support these communities with tailor-made tools, such as webinars, such as guidelines, and online support, basically. And here are some of the key resources that have been developed within the framework of the Plastic Buses Initiative, which, as Alessandra mentioned, is a UFM labeled initiative, and it includes video guidelines as well. And this is just an overview of the countries that took part, and it was very interesting to see that also we had an expression of interest coming from non-Mediterranean countries. So it was interesting to see how far the message was spread at the end of the day in asking local communities to join in. And here is a reflection of the kind of data that were produced. So basically, a mean litter density of 387 items per 100 meter stretch of beach was calculated. And this basically is very much comparable with the densities that have been reported for different countries within different contexts, including the 2023 Quality Status Report of UNEP-MAP that Tatiana mentioned. And this data basically show how much the abundance of litter items on the coastal environment exceed the Mediterranean and the European threshold values that have been set for beach litter. And another important aspect of this data produced is that they're very much comparable with the data that have been generated by research groups and academics. So as long as the community groups use the adopted methodologies to carry out their research, the results can be really comparable and fit for purpose in terms of defining national or even regional and global strategies. And another important element of this initiative was that we tried to go a bit further when it comes to participatory science and not just focus on the coastline, which is something that we have been doing sort of traditionally in our region, but we wanted also to engage a sort of a new group, which is a group of the divers and people, either professional or recreational divers, and enhanced knowledge on seafloor litter, which was also the focus of the national WES activities in Algeria and Morocco. And we were really happy to see that there was interest to do that. And these are just some of the data that were obtained, which was, again, very much comparable with seafloor litter densities, for example, that have been reported in the limited body of scientific literature that exists in a region for this kind of methodology, which was observing or assessing seafloor litter with visual sensors. And basically, this was all that I wanted to say in this part of the webinar. And my take-home message would be that community-based research can be a cost-effective and efficient way of gathering the necessary evidence to address marine plastic pollution and to deliver the science that we need for the ocean that we want. And with that, I would like to close my presentation. And of course, I would be happy to answer to any of your questions posed in the chat. And now I would like to introduce the WES video guidelines that have been developed for monitoring seafloor litter. And this was actually a resource, on the one hand, developed to support the implementation of the UFM Greener Med agenda, and also, on the other hand, to serve as a valuable participatory science resource, aiming to empower local communities and stakeholders to actively engage in data collection and monitoring efforts in the region. And so I will stop sharing, and hopefully my colleagues can put on the WES video guidelines for all of you to watch.
Welcome to this video tutorial where we will walk you through the methodological steps for monitoring marine litter on the seafloor using visual senses with scuba or snorkeling. By watching this video tutorial, divers and marine litter practitioners will learn how to select the survey site, when and how often to perform the survey, how to conduct the visual observation process, and how to carry out the classification of the litter items observed. By the end of this tutorial, you will know how to generate fit-for-purpose, reliable, and comparable data, meeting the requirements of the European Union Marine Strategy Framework Directive, Descriptor 10, and the Barcelona Convention Integrated Monitoring and Assessment Program, Ecological Objective 10. Let's dive in. Before any seafloor litter survey begins, the site to be monitored should be selected taking into consideration certain criteria. Sites should be selected to consider areas that might accumulate litter, avoid areas of risk, such as locations characterized by the presence of munitions and other hazardous waste, as well as sensitive ecological zones, prevent disturbance to endangered or protected species, steer clear of areas with strong currents or waves, avoid vessel navigation routes to minimize diver risk. The selection process typically follows a twofold approach: identifying sites based on specific criteria, proximity to ports, river mouths, urban areas, etc., and randomly selecting from a wide range of potential sites. The minimum sampling frequency for any site should be annually, ideally at a consistent time of year. The sampling unit, the section of the seafloor that will be surveyed, is defined by the transect width and length. Distances should be determined either by laying out a 100-meter tape measure or alternatively by laying out a 100-meter length of weighted rope across the bottom. The start and end point of each transect should be identified with marker buoys and recorded using a GPS. The length of the line transects should vary between 50 to 100 meters, and the width from 4 to 8 meters, depending on the depth gradient, the turbidity, the habitat complexity, and the litter density. A typical sampling unit has a length of 100 meters and a width of 2 meters on each side of the nylon line. The following items are necessary to carry out seafloor litter surveys: scuba gear and equipment, mesh sack, underwater digital camera, GPS, recording sheets and pencils, measuring tape and/or rope. The Seafloor Macro Litter Survey Protocol, with visual senses and scuba snorkeling, refers to the procedural method for conducting a seafloor macro litter survey, and it includes a classification list of litter types. All macro litter items, defined as items larger than 2.5 centimeters in their longest dimension, should be recorded. If litter items are found in extremely high numbers, a smaller transect should be used instead of the 100-meter transect, thus saving effort and time. To ensure that all macro litter items found in the sampling unit are recorded, it is essential to deploy a systematic sampling approach. All items found on the seafloor of the sampling unit need to be recorded and, if possible, removed. Items entangled in seaweed or other natural materials should also be considered. Large or heavy items should just be marked and not removed. All items collected from the sampling unit should be brought ashore, where they must be classified by type according to the joint list of marine litter items categories prepared by the MSFD Technical Group on Marine Litter. The manual for applying the joint list classification system provides detailed information on how to classify litter items, and a complementary photo guide helps the surveyors identify and categorize the litter items. The joint list includes 183 different types of litter items, which have been given a unique identification number. Each litter item collected should be classified and entered on the seafloor litter monitoring sheet for shallow waters. Unknown litter, or items that are not on the survey sheet, should be noted in the appropriate Other Item box. A short description of the item should also be included on the survey sheet. The unit in which litter should be recorded is number of items, and it should be expressed as counts of litter items per 100 square meters, or counts of litter items per square kilometer. Once the survey is completed, all litter collected should be disposed of properly. Regulations and arrangements that apply in the area should be followed. Proper monitoring of our seas generates fit-for-purpose data that are essential in developing evidence-based strategies and policies to mitigate the adverse effects of marine pollution on marine life, coastal communities, and ecosystems. Now that you know how, join the collective effort and make an impact. Okay, so Thomi, is there anything you would like to say in conclusion? Following the video guidelines, which are available in English, French, and Arabic.
Well, actually not that much, just to thank everyone for being here. I'm available for any questions or assistance. And yeah, our eyes are now, looking at what's gonna come next with regard to the global treaty and see how we can utilize that development in our region. And yeah, not that much.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to echo that we are talking about community engagement, but local communities, although their work is so impactful and cost effective, somehow they should also be supported financially to be able to deliver the important work that is being done. Sometimes we are misconstrued as volunteer organizations, but in fact, there has to be something for the engine to work. So yeah, because a lot of the participants are expressing this concern. So thank you very much. We close this session, and I will continue to say that every action, be it institutional, technical, linked with preventing plastics, needs to have an integral parallel awareness and education component if it wishes to be successful. Without this component, it just doesn't have an impact in the end, and may even meet with, how can I say, obstacles along the way. So to have a smooth process, this should be part of the design of any activity. Now, Louise Sarant, our Cairo-based team member with outreach and communication expertise, is going to briefly share her WES experience in developing a campaign for raising awareness on the importance of saying no to single-use plastics. So welcome, Louise, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anastasia. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I'm very excited to introduce to you the key elements of this new campaign that we've been working on in collaboration with the EU delegation in Jordan and Morocco, as well as with the Ministry of Environment in Jordan and the Ministry of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development in Morocco. Next. Okay, so in order to be able to communicate effectively on plastic, there's a resource that I found that I think everyone should have access to, which is sourced here, called Reducing Pollution: Campaigns That Work. This is extraordinary document and study that was published by UNEP, where basically they've studied 50 global campaigns on plastics, not just single-use plastics, I want to say that, but on plastics in general. And they extracted and they found what were the ways that were the most efficient in terms of changing behavior and having an impact. And so I decided that I was going to try, and I convinced all our colleagues, and we decided together that we should, as much as possible, use those different elements. And so the first one is customization, which is also personalization or segmentation. And it's very simply just deciding who do you want to talk to? What are those people's values? How old are they? What's their socioeconomic background? And so the idea is to really just target a specific people so that you can then craft a message that will resonate the most with them. Then the second one is positive social norms. So this taps very much into all of us, our desire to be to fit in society, to be recognized as positive elements of society. And we've included this in our campaign by basically, I will show you later how we did this. Then being specific. So the idea is to not say no to plastics as something that is not very easily implementable for people, but to be more specific about showing alternatives, what can people do, and making sure that those alternatives are actually accessible in the country and relevant. Then tapping into positive emotions, that's an interesting one. So based on a lot of psychological studies that looked at the impact of different campaigns that had been developed, they showed that the ones that tapped into pride, into hope and optimism were often more successful to elicit change in behavior. So that's what we've decided to do in this specific campaign. Another point is to ask people to commit. So that can take different forms. For our campaign, we've decided to develop a 30 days without soups challenge, on the basis that if people are asked to make more effort, they're likely to change their habits more long term. And then the last one is showing people that their choice matters, right? Because especially for an issue as big as plastic pollution, it's very easy to just feel that whatever we do, whether positive or negative, doesn't really change much. So this one is really, our campaign is really looking at showing that on the contrary, every single thing that people can do can make a difference. Okay, in terms of, I just want to tell you a little bit more about the target, which is the customization. So we decided to go for people who are youth, but leaving teenagehood and reaching adulthood. So this is a group of people aged between 16 and 25. And the idea for this choice is because this is a transition in life, right? And again, studies have shown that it's way easier to adopt new habits when you're in a transition phase in your life. So this is what we've chosen, at least for the first phase of this campaign. Next. For this phase of the campaign, we've decided to focus on two different soups. The first one is non-renewable plastic bags, because they're still the top polluter in the Mediterranean and marine litter, inland pollution. And we are suggesting tote bags as an alternative to plastic bags. And the other soup that we've decided to tackle are plastic straw. And the idea is, with the straw, is to give young people the option, or to at least give them the choice to think about whether they really need those straws or not. Next. Okay, so those are the four elements of the campaign. We've developed a 1-minute animation video that I will show you at the end of my presentation. This is a screenshot from the video for Jordan. So there's small differences between the two, particularly in the language, obviously, but also in some of the architecture around, and some of the characters look a little bit different. Not the main ones, but mostly the ones in the background. Then we've developed a challenge as well, as I mentioned earlier, like a 30 days without soups challenge. I will talk a bit more about it later. A social media campaign. So this campaign will be on social media, and a mini site, so a small internet site that will be hosted by the ministries. We're piloting the campaign. Next. Okay, so this is just to give you an overview of some of the key messages, hashtags, and the slogans that we've developed for the two countries. We have all of those in Arabic as well, and in Amazigh, thanks to our fantastic communication local experts who've been very involved in developing this. I also want to say a special thanks to WEM from the ministry in Morocco, who is actually the one who came up with the best slogan for this campaign, which is "We don't need them," which we then adapted for the Jordanian version as well. Next. Okay, so in terms of the mini site, we wanted to have a place where we could gather all the elements from the campaign. So it would be also an area, a place where people can get more information and join the challenge. It will bring together all the campaign's mission and objectives on reducing plastic soups in the two countries. We also have really fantastic educational material that was developed by WES that will be accessible there. And so really just very detailed suggestion on how to put this website together. That will be hosted by the ministry, who are piloting the campaign, so that you can really ensure that you have the information that is easily accessible. That also makes sense, right? We want to have a side-by-side of what are the problematic single-use plastics, what are their alternatives next to it, and we want to be reasonable in terms of, yes, those alternatives exist in the country, or they can be recycled. We will also add like a live feed, or we're suggesting to add a live feed whereby different hashtags from the campaign can appear. Next. Okay, so in terms of the challenge in Morocco, it will be called 30 jours sans mica challenge, because mica is plastic in Moroccan Arabic, and I think it really resonates with people there. So the idea is to basically have the ministry piloting the campaign sort of encourage young people to stop using specific plastics for the duration of a month, and basically communicate about their experience by using social media, right? It's not easy to not use some plastics. And so the interest is to have them talk about their challenges, and also the fact that they managed to do it and how they feel about it, and drag other young people to like emulate them and join them. it's also where we will make sure, or at least I highly recommend that the ministries in charge for piloting the campaign reshare and cross-post on their own social media platforms some of the most inspiring content created by the youth. In terms of incentives, so that young people join the challenge, again, it's been shown by a lot of psychological studies that money is not going to be the most motivating factor here versus social status, not status as much as becoming like a role model. And so what we're suggesting for the ministries to do is to basically maybe come up with an award ceremony where the press would be there with the minister to maybe like give some awards to like really outstanding participants to the challenge. Yeah, and I think next, I think it might be time now to show you what this looks like. Maybe before we start the video, yeah, I will go to the rationale afterwards, but I just want to give you like just a more precise idea how we worked on developing it. And all of our partners have seen the first sketches, but I think it's still in it's finalized now at a state that no one has really seen. So I'm excited to show it to you. It's a sneak preview. It's not the final version, but I think it's nice to be able to show it to you today. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Huh? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the video as it stands. If you don't mind giving me the last slide so I can maybe just explain a few elements very quickly and the rationale as to why we chose this. Thank you. Okay, so we decided to go for the location of the market because in the two countries, this is a place that are famous for having still a lot of circulation of non-recyclable plastic bags. So we thought it would be a good place to start. The hero, our main character, is this quite dashing young man who is very confident, but also very kind. He's clearly very familiar with that area. He's just saying hi to different vendors. And he is really a positive, kind role model that young people can look up to. Here again, the tone and the tone is very upbeat outside of this small segment where we're showing the forest and the litter there. And in terms of the friends and all of that were discussed with our partners. And so there's been a few iteration of what the friends would look like and how many people would be there. And in the end, we decided we'll have a varied group of friends. So they're friends from university, at least that's what we can assume. And lastly, we wanted to show the forest versus a different natural area, which could have been a beach, which would have made a lot of sense too, because we thought that we could then use the campaign, or the ministries could then launch the campaigns pretty much at any time during the year, because it wouldn't have to be tied up to a specific summer season. So yeah, this is what I wanted to show you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. Yes, indeed. It also, a lot of the countries have inland regions and mountainous regions, and the campaign can apply all over the country as well. And in the beginning, I remember that even I questioned why we have the hero being a male. And interestingly enough, research shows that men are more difficult to change their behaviors in this specific it's a style issue. It's not the most manly thing to have a tote with you. So we decide, and women, on the other hand, are more willing to make such changes in their everyday life. So we're going with the hardcore target group. Just a few more clarifications there for you to know. And yes, we are quite excited, and we hope that this proposed and suggested by WES campaign can fly, and we'll be standing by in the next phase of WES BCA also to see how the follow-up can roll out. So thank you very much, Louise.
You're welcome.
And from my end, I'm just going to jump in quickly to the next presentation. I'm going to be very brief, and what I would like to do is just share a resource that has been developed under WES. It has a long title, but it's also full of a lot of information. So it's a background guidance document for the community of practitioners on a somewhat more narrow part of the overall effort. So it's about achieving soups-free coastal and marine protected areas in the Mediterranean while enhancing responsible tourism and recreation activities in coastal areas and strengthening the science policy practice interface through community-based research. You have heard quite a bit about community-based research today and quite a bit about soups. And if we go to the next slide, you will sort of understand how we came about having such a specific title and focus. But in fact, there was a WES regional activity, which from the design of the project came to address a specific gap, and it aimed to strengthen and assist capacity building of the stakeholders in the WES partner countries so as to be able to better effectively manage single-use plastics in and around coastal and marine protected areas. We knew at the time that there were important projects running that would come out with useful resources by the time our training took place. We wanted to put emphasis on the role of the Tourism and Recreation Center, and by enhancing measures and actions to address the single-use plastics challenge by implementing citizen participatory science interventions. It sounds like a lot, but it takes a lot in order to address such a complex problem. And in fact, we had a 4-day regional training in Thessaloniki last July, and we had a first version of the document ready for the participants. Basically, we went a little bit into some of the content during the training, and now we have made a final version, which is open to the wider Mediterranean community. So next slide, please. Very quickly now, it has quite a few sections, and sections 1 to 5 of this document provides basically the background part. And after a few words about what our project was all about, we went into how this document came to be, which I sort of explained just now. We go into what the Mediterranean context is, there's not too much text. It's just very much to the point. And we also give an overview of the policy framework that guides us in this specific region on how to tackle soups, because we have to build on all of the existing work and existing policy settings. And then we have a section on citizen participatory science, and how it's some theory in order to understand how, by applying and implementing such actions, we can support the transition to a green, fair, and more circular economy. The next sections, next slide, please, Danai. The next sections, which are sections 6 to 8, is a number of cases. We opted to present cases. Not all of them are best practices. A lot of these cases are interesting cases, though, because of the challenges they have dealt with and the way they address these challenges. So these cases are clustered. We have 4 categories, and these categories align with, for example, the UNEP-MAP regional plan on marine litter management and other popular ways of clustering such activities. So we have examples of cases that focus on institutional policy measures. We have then cases on technical and infrastructure measures. Then we go to education awareness and cultural change measures. And finally, we have cases where citizen participatory science is applied. And ideally, there are some cases that combine all of what the long title explains. So they are about cases applied in coastal areas for the Tourism and Recreation Center, had educational components, cultural change components, and used participatory science. But there are not many cases that, of course, combine everything. Nevertheless, you can see the breakdown of what each of these cases cover, and it's a template that was followed throughout. So all of the cases have an overall, like a small summary, what the issue at stake is, what the main courses of action taken were, some key results, and what the impact was. If there was a best practice or an innovation component, not always the case, but nevertheless, when it's there, it's mentioned. If there is a participatory science component, that too is mentioned, unless, of course, the whole activity is a participatory science activity. If there is information on what the cost was, not always the case. And also, before going to references and links to further information, there is also an assessment of whether this is a case that can be easily or not replicable. So if we go to the next slides, I will not go into all the cases, of course, but just to show you that we have 2 cases under the institutional policy measures, and the next speaker will actually go into one of them. Section 7 in the next slide shows you that we have a few more examples. There are 6 examples, 6 cases for more technical and infrastructure-based measures. And section 8 has 3 cases in terms of how educational awareness and culture aspects were tackled. And the final section, which we thought would have fewer, but ended up having more examples, is the one on participatory science and citizen science. So that was, in a nutshell, the deliverable of this regional activity. And in fact, this webinar is taking place in the framework of this regional activity. And we would like to thank all of the participants at the training who gave their feedback and sort of confirmed the relevance and significance of having such a resource. It is only available in English, I'm sorry to say, but nevertheless, we would encourage, it's very easy to access it. And it is a document that is written in the form of being a living document. So it can be enriched, it can be updated with ease, and we shall revisit it under WES BCA if all goes well. So that was my brief intervention here, and I will jump straight into introducing our next speaker, Matias Rodriguez. Thank you for joining today. The French-speaking participants will be happy to know that he will be speaking in French, so you will rest for a little bit. And just to introduce him, Matthias is a WES expert on material resource management, and he will take us through some of the project's experiences in relation to policy and legal aspects. And you can also find more information about these cases in the document that I quickly whizzed you through. And Matthias, the floor is yours. And right after you, Anis Ismail, our key environment expert under WES, will join with his comments and his wrap up on that. And we'll continue with an interesting presentation on yet another group of champions of this Mediterranean community that we have built so far. So thank you, Matthias, and the floor is yours.
Merci. Donc, je vais parler en français, donner un peu de diversité à la réunion. Et en particulier, je vais me focaliser sur la responsabilité des producteurs en tant qu'outil permettant le combat à la pollution plastique. Next slide. Ici, donc, on rappelle un petit peu dans le thème 1 de WES, qui est la gestion des déchets marins, quels sont les principaux résultats et impacts et les domaines d'activité. Donc, commençons par les données qui sont nécessaires pour alimenter, disons, les problématiques et les politiques nationales. Un consensus au niveau national entre les entités gouvernementales, le secteur privé et les ONG, dont le but est d'arriver à une gestion efficace des déchets plastiques. L'élaboration de stratégies et de feuilles de route sur la réduction des plastiques à usage unique, qui sont en place désormais dans beaucoup de pays de la Méditerranée. Un autre gros sujet sur lequel j'irai un peu plus loin dans ma présentation, qui sont les systèmes de responsabilité élargie des producteurs, qui jusqu'à présent était une des faiblesses de beaucoup de pays de la Méditerranée et qui font l'objet d'une série d'études et de préconisations. Ça a été le cas par exemple récemment au Maroc, et pas seulement. Autre aspect, c'est une démarche d'accord volontaire avec le secteur privé. On a vu que certains secteurs sont particulièrement, disons, concernés par la réduction des plastiques à usage unique, le secteur hôtelier de la restauration, le secteur de la distribution, etc. Et disons deux volets additionnels qui sont, pour une part, les comportements responsables des consommateurs. On a vu la présentation sur les campagnes de sensibilisation qui a été réalisée précédemment. On a vu l'importance que ça peut avoir vis-à-vis du changement de comportement et d'attitude. Et puis des actions volontaires et des solutions innovantes en matière de prévention des déchets plastiques. Voilà, prochaine, next slide. Alors, quels sont les instruments qui sont à disposition des pouvoirs publics, et pas seulement, l'ensemble des acteurs et des parties prenantes de la chaîne de la valeur des plastiques? Il y a toute une série de leviers qui vont depuis l'étape d'extraction des matières jusqu'à l'étape de gestion des déchets. Bon, pour citer quelques-uns, l'interdiction de substances, matières ou produits, partielles ou totales, des normes sur le contenu ou des obligations sur le contenu de matériaux recyclés à l'intérieur des produits, des taxes sur les matières vierges, et puis les systèmes plus en aval qui concernent déjà la responsabilité élargie du producteur au sens plein du terme, et qui sont les systèmes de take-back, de collecte sélective pour recyclage, de systèmes de retour pour la réutilisation, les systèmes de consigne très utilisés dans le cadre des bouteilles de boissons et d'eau, des bouteilles d'eau. Voilà, donc une panoplie de mesures, d'actions et de leviers qui sont à la disposition pour résoudre le problème des plastiques à usage unique. Next slide. Alors, j'ai listé en vertical donc les mesures, il y a une panoplie de mesures, la plupart d'entre elles déjà utilisées et couramment utilisées. Simplement pour attirer l'attention que toutes ces mesures ont bien sûr des avantages et des inconvénients et ne sont pas applicables à tous les matériaux, à toutes leurs utilisations, etc. Donc il y a des mesures qui ont plus ou moins un impact. Donc le vert foncé, c'est quand l'impact est fort et certain. Le vert clair, c'est quand il est moins direct et moins intense. Alors, ça c'est un exemple appliqué à une série de plastiques à usage unique qui vont depuis des sacs de caisse, des sacs de service pour la distribution, à droite, jusqu'aux bouteilles d'eau, en passant par les gobelets, les récipients alimentaires. Alors, si je refaisais ce tableau pour d'autres pays, ça c'est un exemple d'un pays en particulier. Alors, si je le refaisais pour d'autres pays, peut-être que les cases ne seraient pas remplies de la même façon. Je veux dire par là que c'est non seulement les qualités ou caractéristiques intrinsèques du produit qui comptent, mais c'est aussi son contexte d'utilisation et les contextes de marché qui peuvent être assez différents entre les pays. Next slide. Alors pour aller dans l'Union européenne qui a, disons, pris à bras le corps le problème des plastiques à usage unique, disons, produit deux grands documents. Le premier est un document direct qui s'appelle la directive des plastiques à usage unique, et après transposé dans chaque pays. et qui définit dans une liste de produits avec des actions pour chacun de ces catégories de produits, qui vont depuis une réduction de la consommation, des mesures qui vont dans ce sens-là, des mesures de prohibition pure et simple, donc d'interdiction de mise sur le marché, des conditions spécifiques qui s'appliquent à certains produits et des produits qui doivent être couverts par les systèmes de responsabilité élargie des producteurs. Il y a un deuxième texte qui, lui aussi, disons, traite du problème des plastiques à usage unique, mais pas seulement. C'est la directive sur les emballages et les déchets d'emballage, vieille directive de 1994, qui est en cours de révision actuellement pour la mettre, pour l'actualiser en relation à toutes les nouvelles problématiques et plastique à usage unique, économie circulaire, etc. Prochain slide. Alors ici, nous avons un exemple sur lequel on a été, et WES a été associé directement, qui est la mise en place de la prohibition des sacs d'emballage plastique à usage unique en Tunisie. Alors ici, j'ai simplement présenté ce qui a été préconisé en termes de roadmap pour que cette prohibition soit effective et en particulier, disons, traite un problème qui est récurrent dans les pays qui ont une industrie plasturgiste, donc des fabricants de sacs plastiques, qui est comment accompagner l'adaptation et la reconversion de ces acteurs économiques aux mesures de prohibition. Prochain slide. Alors, la problématique de l'interdiction des sacs d'emballage est une problématique qui n'est pas uniquement une problématique, disons, technique, et c'est une problématique à la fois technique, environnementale, financière, économique, et même sociale, vu l'impact que cela peut avoir sur l'emploi dans certaines filières, notamment, j'ai donné l'exemple de la plasturgie. Donc, il y a une prohibition peut entraîner et peut provoquer des impacts au niveau de l'emploi dans les filières et les secteurs les plus concernés. Voilà, donc l'étude a dû balayer l'ensemble de ces problématiques assez complexes dans certains cas. Prochains slides. Alors, pour compléter, mis à part, disons, les aspects environnementaux techniques, il y a aussi les aspects d'accompagnement, de suivi et contrôle. Très important, il faut contrôler le monitoring il faut contrôler le résultat des mesures. La communication et la sensibilisation des citoyens, des différents acteurs sociaux. Et puis, un aspect aussi juridique, il y a notamment des adaptations de certains textes. Et dans le cas de la Tunisie, une adaptation du décret lui-même qui nous a semblé nécessaire pour clarifier un certain nombre d'aspects qui étaient restés un peu, disons, mal définis. Prochain slide. Voilà, alors très rapidement, les mesures qu'on met en place dans le cadre de la REP ont des obstacles. J'ai déjà mentionné un qui était l'obstacle économique et social des secteurs particulièrement affectés par des mesures d'interdiction, par exemple. Vous voyez aussi que ces mesures doivent s'accompagner d'outils spécifiques pour soit en renforcer l'efficacité, soit pour, disons, empêcher ou minimiser des effets pervers ou des effets négatifs non souhaitables. Je crois qu'on a fait le tour et je suis donc au bout de la présentation. Prochain slide. Merci de votre attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias, for providing this overview on the political and legal dimension of SUPS and EPR. Before I start, I would like to welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here with you today, and thanks all for joining this. A big thank you to the whole WES community for all the valuable discussion and results we have achieved together over the past few years. I wanted to see that we have with us partners and focal points and many stakeholders from all sectors, NGOs, local authorities, and partners. So I wanted to start by thanking again our partners and thanking the WES core of experts and those who have contributed in WES actions. Yes, I just wanted to react very quickly on what has been prepared shared by Matthias. I have three points. The first is about discussions within the region on EPR. Many countries are advancing and discussing and have rounds of consultations. However, we sometimes perceive that process, including reforms on solid waste management, packaging waste sector, can be perceived as long and complex sometimes. The sector solid waste in general is a complex sector. It's compared to other sectors, I can say that it's a complex with many rounds of consultations, discussions, and involving many stakeholders. I can refer to Morocco and Tunisia, where yes, we know we have been accompanying and following and sometimes contributing in discussion on EPR, and in Tunisia on the ban of plastic bags. Also in Jordan, in Lebanon, in many countries actually now in Palestine, with discussions taking many years. But I think that there is a progress with the EPR in our region. There is a momentum, and we need to continue to support countries in this process and support the dialogues and consultation, especially with private sector. Yes, although policies and legislations are underway, the success of the strategy will also rely on active industry contribution. This is my second point. And industry's engagement in the process, in reducing plastic products, in promoting safer alternatives, and establishing effective mechanisms. Collaboration with with private sector, including packaging industry, retailers, HoReCa, tourism, fisheries is key, and also with informal sector. Also through voluntary actions in Lebanon, that was also, and also in Morocco, where we have somehow facilitated actions, assigning voluntary actions with the restaurants. This can be also, this action is complementing and is supporting the processes within the countries. Contributing in the technology transition, greening of this sector. I wanted to refer, yesterday I noticed something intriguing and very interesting, where I will not name it, but there is a very well-known company producing multi-layer packaging system. This company is actually in Tunisia. Joyce's Milks, probably you know it, very, very well-known company. This company actually is promoting, has implemented a project jointly with the recycling industry and with the paper industry on their own. totally disconnected from any governmental contribution. And we can see in the roads here in Tunisia, campaigns, communication campaigns to collecting, to sorting, and to promoting. This is initiative like such initiatives are to really to acknowledge and to promote. This helps, of course, and contributes to also to efforts, governmental, I would say, efforts. The last point is about setting clear targets. It's important for governments to set strategies, action plans with clear targets and clear visibility especially for private sector. This is the point. This includes clear targets, milestones for restrictions. That was, I think, it was also mentioned by Matthias, where with under WES we contributed in preparing or drafting a roadmap that clarifies for plastic sector what would be the milestones. Of course, it will be the global reforms, legislations, and binding agreement will come. So there will be clear legislations, but private sector should be prepared for this, and at national level, they need to clarify, to communicate about these targets. These are some thoughts that I wanted to share to complement what has been prepared presented by Matthias. And once again, I wanted to thank all partners, and we look forward to continuing cooperation with all the WES community under the WES BCA in the next months and years. Thank you. So I have, yes, Anastasia, tell me.
Before you go on, because we are actually running out of time, but I had promised Françoise that if she was in the webinar to make her very brief intervention. So Françoise, please do take a short time to contribute to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will be brief. I don't want to waste your time or to steal your time. I would like to repeat again. I know that you know that waste management is a cost for municipalities who are responsible for the waste management mainly in all of the countries we are speaking about today and participating to the webinar. So I think that when we discuss and we express the need to have a collaboration of all stakeholders when we put in place a roadmap or an EPR systems or whatever we want to improve the situation, we really need to involve them because they are the closest power to the citizens. So when you want to involve the community level and also to raise public awareness at really local level, you can have a big help from the local authorities. And also because usually they are proud of their territory. So if you give some incentives in order to get them broader to their territory because they are cleaner, they are responsible to clean the beaches, to clean the streets, and to collect waste, it will be a really a good positive impact. So for all the national focal point being with us today, when you put in place and you implement your strategy, please don't forget to involve the municipal level, because for sure you will have a better and more efficient result. So it was just my remark, and I thank you all for giving me the floor for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Françoise. Thanks for recalling these points. Very important point, and I totally agree with you. I can refer to what is being implementing and the Toumali labeled program, where yes, definitely actions on EPR are implemented jointly with local authorities in Tunisia, in Morocco, and in Alexandria in Egypt. It is compulsory. It's very important to design any scheme jointly with local authorities. Thank you so much, Françoise, for recalling this point. So I have a few slides very quickly. I'm trying to share with you. Yes, very quickly to report on a process that we have implemented jointly with, on behalf of the European Union and jointly with UFM and UNEP-MAP, trying to identify, to mobilize and to disseminate innovative approaches and successful practices within the Mediterranean region. I will talk about champions, Mediterranean plastic pollution prevention champions within the region. Next slide. So in last year, in summer of last year, we started the process by launching a call for expression of intent for champions of plastic pollution prevention in the Mediterranean region. The aim is to try to identify and to promote voluntary actions within the region, to actions toward plastic pollution prevention in the Mediterranean region, and to motivate any advancement and commitments to combating plastic pollution, with focus on plastics and single-use plastics. So the idea is to to propose innovative actions and to with a targeting all stakeholders or all partners. The selected candidates that delivered on their commitments by summer a few weeks ago were awarded the honorary title of champions in addressing pollution by plastics by WES, EU, UFM, and UNEP-MAP. And a few days ago, a few weeks ago, in Athens, a few were awarded in person during the WES closing conference. Next slide. So here we can see some photos of some champions awarded in Athens. Next slide. Let me very quickly try to present the process. We started in May 2023 by publishing the call of expression of intent. And so from May to July, after publishing the call, approaching, promoting, disseminating the call within the region jointly with and working with all other partners, trying to disseminate the call. We received submissions, and the call was closed in July 2023. Then we started the evaluation of the applicants, and in October we signed agreements with the partners. Then, after signing the agreements with the candidate champions, we mobilized, we appointed local experts to track the process, to somehow to help document the process, working, fixing targets with the partners. Let me recall that all this process, we did not pay any single dinar, dirham, any funds from WES. We just documented actions implemented by the partners on their own. Then with this, we can say that we have a community of practices in plastic pollution prevention. We received a number of initiative, program projects, and in autumn 2023, we announced, we awarded the champions of plastic pollutions, and we can say that we have a med community of champions. But definitely there are many other champions, and we will be looking at, cooperating, and we hope that even under the next phases, and even with the contribution of all our partners, we will be observing and documenting and reporting and sharing these case studies and the best practices within the region. Next slide. This is the call. We received 109 applications. After some screening, we identified 84 candidate champions, and we signed 47 cooperation agreements. And just recently, we confirmed 39 champions. Champions are those who have
Anais, okay, you
reached,
froze for a bit.
achieved their targets within the periods, the months, the numbers until, as I told you, from can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? It
Yes,
is
we can
probably
hear
the
you now. You
connection.
froze
Yeah,
for a bit,
sorry.
but we can hear you.
So I was saying that I was reporting on the number of of applications. It is here. So we received 39. We confirmed 39 champions. Next slide. This is the geographical location. We received. We have champions from almost all the region, EU, non-EU countries. This is the figures on the origin. The type of institution, you can see that more than half of them are from CSO, NGO, foundation, donor, sponsors, national authorities, agencies, from private sector, from research sector, education institution, educators, media, local authorities. So we try to assess, to document, and to present, to promote all champions from the region, from all sectors. Next slide. So very quickly, I'm going to present. Probably don't have time to present, to go. We have the names here of champions. Just to say that we have 15 champions from who have worked on the education, public awareness raising campaigns or used to address plastic pollution. Next slide. We have 10 champions whose action covers design, production, introduction of innovative products and application of innovative methods that restricts unsustainable use of plastics and enhance production and use of sustainable substitutes in various sectors. We have many, as I said, 10 champions from Palestine, Jordan, Germany. I can refer to the UFM label program to Mali, Morocco, Egypt, Lebanon. Next slide. We have 5 champions working on improved waste collection systems that enable high plastic waste collection. So those who have implemented the sorting program, separate collection program from Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Tunisia, Greece. Next slide. We have 6 champions from those who worked on the synergies, promoting synergy between different stakeholders, including the private sector involved in plastic, in order to facilitate the implementation of concrete solutions to drastically reduce the use of all regulations to combat plastic pollution from Egypt, from France, from Greece, from Morocco, and from Palestine. And we have 3 champions, mainly local authorities, governments, working on governance that results in reduced use, production, and trade of single-use plastics, encourage effective recycling, and help the minimization of marine litter from, as I said, from Jordan, Morocco, and Palestine. So this is the very quick overview. We will showcase, we will promote more and more the champions, and we, of course, with UFM and with UNEP-MAP and with EU related program, we will be promoting more and showcasing and disseminating the actions, the rewarding actions undertaken by these partners, by these champions. Thank you so much. This is very quickly
Thank you, Anais.
presentation of the champions process. Thank you.
Thank you for going through it so quickly. We are a few minutes past our time. We have, however, no questions posed in the Q&A application, but there has been a lot of bilateral interaction between participants and panelists in the chat, which unfortunately is not visible to anybody, but at least some of the questions have been addressed. And sorry for this meeting not being more interactive, but the purpose was to basically by design, be a little bit one-sided so that you have all of this information. And we hope to meet more in the field and in our implementing of the work in the day-to-day in the coming months and years. And from my side, I would like to thank everyone. And just one final note, I'm asking Dr. Emma Dadley, who is our WES stakeholder engagement expert and impact assessment expert under WES, to also say a goodbye and hello note to the webinar.
Thank you.
As we close.
Thank you, Anastasia. Just before you close, I would like to thank all the panelists, of course, but just to follow up on what been presented from Anis, this part of the project of WES on the champions was a very good example of the collaboration that could be established between the UFM, UNIP-MAP, and the WES, of course, and the EU. And also all the champions that we have seen in the slides from Anis. It shows that we already have the innovation, we have already the solutions, and also all of the solutions and all the success stories and the champions became champions because they were able also to establish this collaboration at the local and at the national level. So congratulations to our champions. I'm sure that they will remain champions in their work for the plastic, and the number of champions will increase because we need more, and we need to support and to find a way to support all these initiatives and innovations, and to find at some point that, you know, we have really programmed to deal with our single-use plastic and with marine litter and so on. So congratulations to everyone, and thank you to all the participants here. And yes, as Anastasia said, it was a kind of hello and goodbye. Have a good evening and wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the interpreters. Thank you to the wonderful support team, which has been very invisible these past 5.5 years. So thank you to the NAI, Allah, Olga, and all of the LDK-based team that has been so helpful in all of our meetings and in making our work progress. So goodbye and see you soon.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Anastasia,
Bye
for your
bye.
support. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Anis. Bye, Anastasia. Bye, Olga.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Olga, and I,